Prime field.
32 turnovers forced, 23 steals, 52 points created directly from those mistakes. Against DePaul, UConn didn't just win, it imposed a kind of pressure that turned the game into a live drill. Possession after possession, mistake after mistake, sprint after sprint. And in that number, 32, there's a clue to what Geno Auriemma is building in stores. Because the defining story of the 2025-26 Huskies is not a new superstar, or a single settled starting five. It is a philosophical shift. Unlike past UConn teams built around a rigid 6 or 7-player rotation, this group is being shaped through experimentation, platoon-style substitutions, and small ball death lineups built around the versatility of Sarah Strong. The central question is straightforward. Is this simply early season tinkering or the blueprint for a new championship formula? One built on waves of relentless perimeter defense that never has to breathe. The evidence is on the tape and in the minutes. The substitution patterns against South Florida and DePaul reveal a deliberate design. This was not reactive coaching, not foul trouble management, not garbage time routine. It was proactive, systematic. Against South Florida, the minutes distribution between starters and primary bench players was nearly identical. Starting guard KK Arnold played 20 minutes. Bench guard Kaylee Heckel also played 20. Starting forward Sarah Williams played 17 minutes. Key bench wings Blanca Quiñonez and Ziebell played 19 minutes each. That kind of balance does not happen by accident. It suggests a platoon concept, where the rotation is not a concession, but a strategic tool, used to keep the team's defensive effort at a constant, aggressive pitch. The most telling sequence came late. In the South Florida game, the entire starting five was pulled to begin the fourth quarter. The bench unit was entrusted to manage a significant lead, and, more importantly, to gain experience playing together. In a program known for tightening rotations when leverage rises, this was a different signal. It was an investment in depth, and in a team identity built on collective force. And that identity becomes clearest when the ball changes hands. For this UConn team, defensive disruption is not a bonus. It is the engine. Against DePaul, the pressure peaked at a season-high 32 turnovers forced. UConn added 23 steals. The result was not just extra possessions, it was instant offense. 52 points directly off turnovers. Against South Florida, the pattern held. UConn's full-court pressure created 20 turnovers, converted into 26 points. The press disrupted South Florida from the opening tip, and the intensity did not drop when the bench entered. The starters set the tone. KK Arnold recorded 3 steals. Sarah Strong added 2. But the more significant detail is what happened next. The defensive workload was shared, and the pace stayed high, because fresh legs were always available. Minutes in this system are earned by creating havoc, and no player embodies that exchange more clearly than Blanca Quiñonez. When the bench unit enters, the offense changes shape. The structured sets, often strong-centric with more half-court continuity, give way to a simpler formula, faster pace, more opportunism, more drive and kick creation from the guards. Against South Florida, the bench produced a balanced, distributed attack. Quiñonez scored 13 points. Heckel added 8. Ziebell added 8. Together they delivered 29 points. It wasn't one hot streak, it was a mechanism. Against DePaul, Heckel delivered the cleanest version of that blueprint. 16 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Her ability to attack the paint created shots for herself, and spacing opportunities for shooters, and the efficiency was striking. Against DePaul, UConn shot 63.5% from the field, and 66.7% from 3, hitting 8 of 12 attempts. The chaos was not reckless. It was productive. It suggested that the second unit's pace can create high-quality looks without requiring a single dominant on-ball creator. And that balance fuels a new kind of late-game question about who closes and why. In close games, certain names remain constants. Azzi Fudd and Sarah Strong are foundational pieces, but in early season blowouts, Geno Auriemma has used the margins to test roles, especially the type that decide March possessions. The specific role under examination is the stopper, the wing defender trusted in the final minutes, when spacing tightens and every drive matters. Quiñonez has built a case through usage and effectiveness. Against South Florida, she played 19 minutes, more than starting the center Sarah Williams, who played 17. That is not a trivial statistic. It points to comfort with smaller, defensively oriented lineups for extended stretches, and Quiñonez's value is not confined to defense. She scored 13 points in those 19 minutes, shooting 5 of 8 overall and 3 of 4 from three-point range. That level of efficiency removes the most common obstacle to deploying a defensive specialist late. She's not a possession to hide. After the DePaul rout, Auriemma's public praise for the second unit reinforced the broader theme: flexibility, a willingness to adjust lineups based on performance and matchup, rather than reputation or precedent. If that approach holds, a player like Quiñonez doesn't just fill minutes, she becomes a piece of the closing equation. And that depth triggers another quieter impact on the team's most prominent scorer. A deeper rotation changes the burden carried by a star. With more playmakers on the floor, Azzi Fudd does not have to function as the primary creator on every possession. The roster can distribute creation and let her become more efficient through off-ball scoring. The DePaul game illustrated that dynamic. Fudd scored 16 points, all in the first half, before taking a reduced role as the lead expanded. The team's depth allowed decisive impact without requiring heavy minutes. The passing also reflects the shift. KK Arnold recorded 7 assists against DePaul. Kaylee Heckel added 5. That playmaking eases the creative load that typically falls onto an elite scorer. Even against South Florida, when Fudd went 0 for 4 from 3, she still scored 10 points by operating within the flow rather than forcing volume. The implication is structural. This roster does not require Fudd to manufacture offense every trip. It can build offense from defense and distribute creation, allowing her energy to be preserved for the moments that matter most. But the entire model depends on one condition. The rotation has to stay deep, because the alternative is not simply fewer substitutions. It is the collapse of the identity being built. If UConn shortened the rotation to 7 players, the defensive profile shown against DePaul and South Florida would be difficult to sustain. The numbers describe a workload that depends on freshness. 23 steals against DePaul was a team effort. Sarah Strong had 5 steals. Azzi Fudd had 4. But the total volume was made possible because the pressure did not stop when the bench arrived, forcing 32 turnovers and converting them into 52 points. Off those mistakes requires sustained intensity for 40 minutes. With a short bench, fatigue accumulates. Closeouts get slower, hands reach later, press rotations arrive half a second behind. In other words, the very traits that created the offensive avalanche begin to disappear. The model is simple. Defensive output rises when player freshness is protected. By rotating 10 to 12 players, Auriemma is trading the offensive rhythm of a fixed 7 for the defensive chaos of a deep roster. And the minutes from these 2 games offer a clear early map of who is earning that trust, and who may be facing a more situational future. The early rotation is forming a trust index, not based on labels, based on usage. Blanca Quiñonez's stock is rising rapidly. 19 minutes against South Florida, plus a two-way impact. High-pressure defense and efficient scoring position her as a primary wing off the bench and a plausible late-game defensive option. Ziebell is also earning consistent trust. 19 minutes against South Florida signals a clear role, spacing. Her outside shooting profile forces defenses to respect the perimeter, creating room for Strong's touches and for guard penetration. And then there is Sarah Williams. The starting designation remains, but the minutes complicate the meaning. Against South Florida, Williams played 17 minutes, the fewest of any starter. That usage suggests a potential shift, the traditional post role becoming matchup dependent. UConn's success with smaller, quicker lineups, often with Strong operating as the lone big, creates a different kind of calculus. In this structure, size is no longer the default. It is one option among several, and not always the chosen one. Which brings the story back to its central premise. This is not a team searching for a rotation, it is a team building a weapon, by testing every possible configuration that can keep the pressure alive. Geno Auriemma's early season tape offers a clear message. This is not merely preparation for the Big East schedule. It is a live experiment, stress testing a new blueprint for winning at the highest level. The defining feature is not a single star. It is the collective, a roster deployed in waves, designed to maintain a relentless perimeter defense, to force turnovers, and to turn disruption into points before opponents can settle. The DePaul numbers, 32 turnovers forced, 23 steals, 52 points off turnovers, are not just a dominant performance. They're a preview of what this team can be when its depth is fully activated. If the rotation remains deep, this identity has a chance to endure. If it shrinks, the storm loses its force. And that is the legacy question already forming months before the season's highest stake possessions. UConn is not simply assembling another contender. It is testing whether a 12-deep defensive collective can become the program's next championship formula, and in the process, redefine what a modern powerhouse looks like.
Prime Field!